This term dominant caste refers to those castes which had a large population and were granted land rights by partial land reforms effected after independence. These reforms took away the rights from the erstwhile claimants or the upper castes who were absentee landlords, that is, they played no part in the agricultural economy other than claiming rents. They frequently did not live in the village either but were based in towns or cities. The land rights now got vested with the next layer of claimants, those who were actually involved in the administration of the land and management of the agriculture, but were not themselves the cultivators. Three intermediate castes got economic power through the so uh, this term dominant caste, it refers to those castes which had a large population and they were granted some land rights after the land reforms that took place in the country after independence. The previously landowners or landlords who claimed to having the maximum land rights, or say the upper caste who were absentee landlords. Absentee landlords are those landlords who are holding the land but they are not cultivating the land by themselves. They have given their land to other cultivators and from them they will charge the rent. Either the rent will be in cash or in kind. Kind means the whatever is the total produce, a part of that produce will be there and the later part will be of the cultivator, or partially in cash and partially in kind. The land rights now got vested with the next layer of claimants, those who were actually involved in the administration of the land and management of the agriculture, but were not themselves the cultivators. The land administration and management was done by the actual claimants. They were the persons who were owning the land and they used to get the land from the rent from those who were cultivating the land for them. These intermediate castes got economic power through the land rights. Their large number gave them political power in the era of electoral democracy based on universal adult franchise. And these a large number of landowners or those who are having the land rights, they soon started getting political power in the era of electoral democracy that is practiced in India. For example, Yadavs of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, Vakilgas of Karnataka, Khamas and Reddis of Andhra Pradesh, etc. Due to their economic power, they started practicing political rights by becoming legislature, that is MPs, MLAs, etc. And they start joining politics and they were elected members of either the parliament or the state assemblies. One of the most significant yet paradoxical changes in the state system in the contemporary period is that it has tended to become invisible for the upper caste, upper middle class and urban upper classes. So the changes in the caste system in the contemporary period is that it has tended to become invisible for the upper caste, upper middle class and upper urban class. So it is disappearing. caste class. For these groups have been benefited the most from the development policies implemented by Government of India after independence. Now they have sufficient wealth and education resources, hence they need not supported from the caste-based claims. So these groups, that is your upper caste, your middle class, urban middle class, and urban upper class, they are no more interested in the caste system in the contemporary India. They were in glut of affluence. Upper caste elites were able to benefit from subsidized public education, and the upper caste educated persons, intellectual persons, they were benefited from subsidized public education, professional education in science, technology, medicine and management. The people till then were ascended to higher position in government services, and they were getting higher position in government services and had made a debate in legislature, and they were being elected in the legislature, state or may say the center. The third generation from these groups had acquired economic opportunities in their life. They were also able to take advantages of expansion of state sector jobs in the early decades after independence. Because of this earlier load over the rest of the society in terms of education ensured a privileged status, and they were the persons who were able to get the maximum opportunities in their life, and they acquired economic opportunities too. They were educated, and they got all the privileges and all the privileged statuses that were assigned to them by the government or the state. A proprietary group is that class of people who are in a position to leave a deep impact as any area such as village in terms of economic and political views. This class of people does not necessarily require a top position in the hierarchical order of society. However, a proprietary caste group owns most of the resources and command labor to work for them in most parts of the country. Then came the proprietary group. The proprietary group is that class of people who are in a high position in the society, and that high position is not because of the hierarchy, the topmost rank in the hierarchy of the caste system. It is because of that they are controlling, or they require the resources and command labor to work for them in most part of the country. There are some factors such as the number factor of caste, education and cultural greatness, which gives a caste the status of a proprietary caste group at the rural level. At the rural level, your cultural greatness, education and even the caste factors give a particular group or a particular caste the status of proprietary caste group in rural areas. For the SCs and STs, caste has become too visible. They have not inherited any economic or educational or social capital and just compete with the already entrenched upper caste group. So, yet the caste system is visible in the SCs and STs case, and they have not inherited any economic or educational or social capital, and they have to compete with the already entrenched upper caste group. They cannot afford to abandon their caste identity, for it is one of the collective assets they have, and their caste identity is the collective asset that they have. The policy of reservation and other forms of protective discrimination are their lifelines to survival. And the reservation policy and other protective discriminatory policies of the government are their lifelines of survival. Means they survive on them only. Using these lifelines tends to make caste the all-important and often the only aspect of their identity that the world recognizes.